Hey everyone, how are we doing today? I know it's bright and early on a Saturday morning. I know most devs are asleep, but we're here and we're gonna make it. So my name's Alex Golding, and I'm here to talk to you about how to take your hackathon demo and turn into a VC-funded startup. And you might say, who is this guy? Well, my name's Alex, like I said, two-time founder, former fellow in finance at George Washington University. I was at Solana Labs' investment team, and now I'm at Delphi Digital doing investment. So when it comes to VC-funded startups, I got both the entrepreneur's experience and the investor's experience, and I'm here to kind of share some of that with you. So I'm going to speak kind of quickly because we've only got 20 minutes and a lot of content to cover. Please excuse me. If there's also, this is kind of high level. If there's anything you want to dive deep into, just raise your hand. We'll do it if we've got time. If not, I will set up some time one-on-one for you. And so like I mentioned, here's our roadmap. 7 key steps to go from hackathon project to VC-funded startup. First, you've got to make a decision. Second, create a strategy. That strategy piece is super important. Then you've got to manage inbound interest. Everyone is going to want to talk to you. You are the celebrity. Then we've got to start building. Nothing I like more than a builder. Then you can fundraise, you can incorporate, and lastly, it's time to take all that money and get on some rocket ship growth. Who's with me? All right, so the first rule is we need you to make your decision. This is something you'll be doing for several years. Do you want to continue down this path? Why or why not? I recommend everyone takes a pen and a paper and answers all these questions. And what's most important, the way you start, is to identify your goals and pursue them relentlessly, because everything else will follow from this. So you need to ignore everything and everyone until you make your decision. I'm telling you this as an entrepreneur who, when I was starting my last business, I had a brilliant idea, or I think it was brilliant, and then I asked everyone, and people who had no stake in the game and had no, they had no downside and no upside really, they gave me all sorts of bad advice. So I say ignore everyone. If this is coming from a pain point, listen to that pain point. And then ask yourself these 5 questions. Am I ready to grow this at hyper speed? What would this look like with an extra 4 or 5 engineers? What about a designer? What if I had a partnerships lead, etc.? Now, once you've written that down, ask yourself, what would this look like with a 20-person team? Because it's very different being 1 or 2 or 3 people at a hackathon and then having 20 people, which is where you'll get to. So it's good to start thinking about it, right? And then ask yourself, how will this project win the hearts and minds of your target market? And that's super important, because once you win a mind share, market share will follow. And lastly, how do your points of differentiation separate you from your competition? And we're going to go in depth on this. In terms of strategy, it's really important. So I've modified kind of this old maxim, and my version is, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, have a strategy. And so that's super important. There's many types of strategy. We're going to get into them on the next slide. But basically, you need to build a moat. Just like this castle has a moat, you need to build a moat between yourself and all of your competitors out there. So I created this little diagram. I'm happy to share it with you after. No need to kind of rush through it, but there's multiple types of strategy. Here are 6 that I've identified for you. First, we've got our corporate strategy. And again, this is the overarching strategy under which everything else kind of follows. So how are you different? How do your differences encourage usage or encourage purchases? Are you leaning into your core strengths? Are you leaning into your technology strengths? Right, so I'm formerly at Solana, and I can tell you that the best protocols on Solana lean into the unique capabilities that protocol's architecture provides. Marketing, how are you going to capture mind share? If you leave you with nothing else, it's strategy and then mind share. Mind share is super important. You need to live in people's minds. Fundraising, why do you need money? Well, how will you spend it? But how is not as important as the why. Always remember that, why? What core deficiencies or gaps will raising money fix? What kind of opportunities will raising money bring you? Again, let's go back to that situation. What would it look like with a team of 5, with a team of 10, a team of 20? How can you start to dominate your little niche? Just to kind of run through things, hiring, we've been over, tech, we've kind of been over. I'm going to tell you guys kind of a brief boomerish story. So in the turn of the millennium, God forbid, 2000, 2001, 2002, there was this hotel brand called Wyndham. Maybe you know about the Wyndham Grand. Maybe you've stayed at the Wyndham. Back then, what all hotels had is they had their data servers on site. What that meant was they couldn't share data between locations, and they had no idea who was checking in Dallas, who was checking in Austin, who was checking in Paris. So what they ended up doing 22 years ago was they created a cloud architecture. Oh my God. But really, 20 years ago, that was quite like innovative. And because of that, they were able to grow, they were able to lean into the technology strengths, come up with some data analytics things back when no one was doing data analytics, and more than triple their market share in a few years. So don't forget to lean in to your technology strength. And then, of course, we've got tokenomics. Here at Delphi, we specialize in token design, right? We've worked with all the major protocols, Aave, Compound, Synthetics, Axie, et cetera. And so you have to ask yourself, why do people want my token? Hey, Chad, what will it do? And how is value going to accrue to it? We have a totally separate kind of slide deck for that. So if you guys want to talk tokenomics, see me or see Kevin later. In terms of, this is a brief kind of market entry framework. I'm going to skip over this just out of time. Rule number 3, as a VC, I want to see nothing more than you know how to build. Sometimes, I get pitched and people say, if you give me $40 million, I will go buy a laptop and start coding. Get out of here. I want to know that you know how to build, right? Nothing is more important to me than seeing that you have the discipline to ship code. Because that's why we're here. We're going to change the world through your code and through our strategic help. And so I put this NFT up here. I don't know how many of you guys know this, but this is a SSC, super shadowy coder off of Genesis Go. And the reason I put it here is Genesis Go is an RPC kind of aggregator on Solana. They spent 6 months building out their service before they dropped the NFT, before they dropped the token. I think that's huge. A lot of people say, oh, you need token incentives, this and that. True, but in my mind, and this is what I tell and work with all of my portfolio companies on, it's after you find product market fit, because these token incentives will distort the customer discovery journey or the usage discovery journey. And you might say, well, how am I going to track people? Everyone else is paying money. Trust me, the good protocols get used regardless. So, rule number 4, once you've kind of gotten this far, you've created a strategy, you've made a decision, you've built a little bit, maybe you're here at the hackathon putting things together. Now you need to manage inbound interest. And this is super important because you're in crypto. It's the longest bull run. I've been here for years. I never thought BTC would hit 40K, 60K. I never thought any of this, right? And so you just kind of need to deal with the froth by being like Drake, right? Say no. Just say no to the leeches, no to the Karens. If people don't convince you in their first 3 minutes of talking to you that they just want to support your project and they're an undying believer, thank you, next. So 5, right? We need to start fundraising. So you've built a strategy, you've made a decision, you've built a little product, now you can fundraise, right? And so we need to kind of understand the dynamics of fundraising. I do have a video link to a YouTube thing, but for some reason it's not showing here. I'll send that out after if anyone wants it. But basically you need to understand the difference between a fund and an angel, right? So funds constantly put money out into these early stage projects. Traditionally, unless of course you're a crypto native angel, traditionally angels have their portfolio divided up into multiple different asset classes. So a quick rule of thumb is a 20x multiplier. So a $40 million fund is equivalent to an angel who is personally worth 800 million. Or a $50 million fund is equivalent to a billionaire, right? Because that's the portion that they're putting into early stage ventures. In crypto, it's a little different because most of us made our money in crypto, so we're fully allocated to crypto, but still, you just need to understand that. You need to understand the current pricing in the market. You need to understand that this fundraise is probably going to be your first and maybe your last appearance in the technology press. TechCrunch, all the CoinDesk, the rest, they want to hear about fundraise. They want to hear about those juicy, juicy dollars. Lastly, I've got this little meme about internet over radio. If my YouTube were going to work, I think here it is. Okay, so it's for those of you who like to watch Silicon Valley, you'll remember this scene. Again, I don't think we really have the time to go into it, but the idea is Russ Hanneman is this billionaire investor, and he's got this startup company, and they're talking about designing their protocol to make money, and he goes, revenue. You can't have revenue. You need to be a pure play. I don't want to make a little bit of money all at once. I don't want to make a little bit of money every day. I want to make a fuck ton of money all at once, right? And so he's speaking kind of like tongue-in-cheek. This is meant to kind of poke holes at Silicon Valley. But the idea is you need to ask yourself, like, how are you going to create value? How are you going to capture that value? And at what stage and point in time is that all going to occur? So it goes back again to that strategy piece that we covered at the beginning of this speech. Rule number 6, right? So incorporate. And you might say, Alex, you're totally messed up. Why would I not have a corporate entity until after I fundraise? So here's the dirty little secret. Your VCs are going to make you pay for the legal fees for the fundraise so they can give you money. So why the hell are you going to spend on it before you have the money, right? Get the money, then incorporate. And don't tell anyone I said that. But just kidding. So as I was saying, as a crypto startup, just a kind of brief little thing about incorporation, you're most likely going to need 2 entities. One that's going to do software development. So if you guys see at the top, we've got Hero, and then one to steward the ecosystem. Usually, this is a foreign foundation. So in the bottom right, you see Hero Network. That is their foreign foundation. So what is the difference? Again, software company at the top. This is where you get paid. This is where you pay your colleagues. This is where you do some business development work. And then stewarding the network and stewarding the token is out of the foreign foundation. Why a foreign foundation? Well, 5 years ago, and God, I know that makes me a dinosaur here, but 5 years ago, we realized that there was this like little kind of annoying thing called the SEC, and this annoying thing called like the Howey test. And so the idea was, right, if we were selling tokens, and people were buying them with an expectation of profit without contributing to them, then that's a security. However, if they are buying some type of instrument that's not a security, that is stewarded and kind of shepherded and birthed by a nonprofit foundation, you should not expect profit from a nonprofit foundation. So that's how we came up with this structure. This is how the lawyers do it. There's some like alternative ways. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just telling you in my years of experience in this field, kind of what the like de facto standard has become. Another thing that's really important is just like anything in life, get 3 bids. It doesn't matter whether you're getting, a plumber, HVAC, or a lawyer. You need 3 bids just to kind of gut check off everyone. Lastly, we need you to onboard banking partners. It's almost impossible in the US, by the way, to get a bank if you tell them you're going to issue a token. So you didn't hear it from me, but that's just kind of hard. If you've got some good partners, like I steer all my portfolio companies to a trust company, which has affiliate banking partners. So the trust company acts as the bank, but really they're assuming all risk on behalf of your company, and then so they're dealing with like the big banks on your behalf. You need to get payroll, you need to get operation systems working. And again, this can be done during the first few months. It doesn't have to be done immediately, but think about it. Okay, so now that we've got all this stuff done, right? We've incorporated, we've raised money, we've come up with a strategy, we've designed a moat. Remember that moat, don't forget about this moat. We've ignored all the Karens, right? Now it's time to grow. Like this guy says, one does not simply grow, right? It comes from this entire process that we've kind of just outlined over the last, how long? 13 minutes or so. And so this is really important because now that you've accepted VC money, we've de-risked that kind of capital portion for you. If you've got good VCs, we've de-risked some of your strategy, right? We've de-risked some of your business development, right? Because we've made connections to your exchanges, to your partners, to your marketers, whatever, right? And so now it's up to you to really do your part and build, ship, and grow. And you have to ask yourself, how am I going to hit 1,000% year-over-year growth? How am I going to hit 2,000, 10,000% year-over-year growth? And some of this, sounds ludicrous. How am I going to grow 100x in a year? But it happens, man. I told you, I was at Solana last year. Beginning of the year, we were at $1.13. Then we went up to like 260 at our peak. So it can happen. And if you think that you are that good, we need you to be prepared for that kind of growth. I mean, who wants their token to go from $1 to 260? I do. All right, cool. We got some cool people in the room. So just remember, the market is waiting for you. In summary, and some of these are in a little different order, but I did this on purpose. But you need to make a decision. Remember, identify your goals and and write them down and go with them. You need to create a strategy, and that strategy is the why, and it's the how, and everything else stems from this. You need to manage inbound interest. Again, say no to the Karens. You need to build, okay? Build. Then we need to fundraise. Once you fundraise, you can incorporate using the money that these VCs gave you. And don't be surprised when they ask you to pay their legal bills. You need to incorporate, right? Oh, I just said that. And you need to incorporate and then grow. And so just to kind of like remember what it's all about, I put the fundraise in that big bubble, because once you have that fundraise, once you've got that money in the door, you've really got kind of like the combustion engine that's going to drive everything else. You're the human capital, we're the financial capital. Let's make it happen. So with that, I'm just going to kind of wrap up. If there's one thing I can leave you with, it's that there's never been a better time in the evolution of human history for you to take your intellectual prowess and turn it into something that can change the world. So with that, I want to thank you, and we're going to open it up for questions for the next 5 minutes. Thank you. Anyone have any questions? I usually get questions about the fundraise and about like the dual, yeah. Wait, you got a microphone.
I like your opinion about like being discerning about inbound interest. And so maybe talk a little bit about like what makes, I mean, you simplified it by saying if they're not interested in your product or your venture right away, immediately chase them away. But can you talk a little bit more about like what are some criteria to consider for taking inbound interest and looking at funders?
Yeah, so I was referring not only to fundraising, but also to consultants, to marketers, to everything, right? And it's just, you've got to understand, you just have to feel, they have to make it clear to you, again, the first few sentences that they believe in your project and that they're willing to support it. If they come in and they're negging you, like they're putting you down, which is different from being critical. Critical means they're using their brain. Negativity means they're like saying you're never going to make it. And that's kind of contrary to the ethos here. Then that's like the main criteria. You know, I can't tell you like specific keywords to look for. Different cultures have different ways of expressing things. But I think that that's super important, because in the beginning, at the beginning stage, it's kind of like a baby, right? Like if you don't want to put like people around your baby that are going to tear it apart. Unless, again, if they're being critical, you need to listen to that, because maybe you like didn't see the risks appropriately, which is different though from like, you know, being negative. Yes, this gentleman, please.
Thank you. So when a founder is looking for money in this seed, pre-seed kind of stage, is there any rule of thumb in terms of like budgeting? Like, should they budget for the next 6 to 12 months, or even further than that, or even shorter, to kind of figure out how much they should raise?
Yeah. So it really depends. I try to tell people to budget 18 months, right? In crypto, there are shorter cycles. If you were in a traditional VC or a traditional company, it's 24 months, maybe a little more, because you need like what's the word? I forget, but just like in case shit happens, kind of fun. But in crypto, you know, 12 to 18 months, thank you guys, 18 months, you can always raise earlier. I get really nervous as a VC. It's a big red flag if you like raised 3 months ago and now you're raising more just because it's like super hot. Sometimes you have to, because you just know this deal's good, but it's a red flag. So I like 18 months. You can start fundraising again if you're in a bull market, like 3 months before that, 4 or 5 months before that. But anything more, if you're like outside of that 6-month window in crypto, like get out of here, right? Unless it's 2019 again. You know, when ETH hits $80 or something, then like, okay, cool, like we're not in a like frothy market. But in today's world, and for the next few years, the way I see it, we're in the most unprecedented bull market of all times, and will be. Guys, I think my time is up. I'd like to thank you. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us on Delphi Digital. You can find me. I'll be in the back here. And again, thank you very much.